This is Viewpoint with Kris Pierce. Today's program has been underwritten by Body Auto Real Estate, providing personal and professional real estate service since 1987. For all your real estate needs, call Diane Body Auto at 402-690-4769. Linda McDermott with Fricke & Associates is an independent insurance representative helping you with personal and business insurance as well as your long-term care, life, health, and retirement needs. Come join the conversation at PoliticalInsidersReport.com, Nebraska's source for local politics. And now, here's our host, Kris Pierce.
Good morning, and welcome to Nebraska's newest and most balanced public affairs program, Viewpoint with Kris Pierce. I'm your host, Kris Pierce, and I'm happy to be with you this morning. You know, our goal here at Viewpoint is to bring you an open and frank conversation from all points of view. Now, for our inaugural show, we've decided to tackle an issue that is rocking this nation and is hitting us right here at home. This issue has become America's newest third rail, and that's gun control. This morning, we're going to be asking ourselves two important questions. First, is there a need to further restrict firearms? Secondly, are the solutions currently being proposed at the federal, state, and local levels appropriate? Now, helping us to better understand and answer these questions are our guests, Andy Allen, former president and current lobbyist for the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association, and Aida Amoura, communications director for Omaha Mayor Jim Suttles. Also scheduled to be with us this morning was Omaha City Councilman representing North Omaha's 2nd Ward, Ben Gray. Unfortunately, the illness many of us are suffering has kept Ben at home. You know, and during research for this topic, we found that not many people really understood the origin of the Second Amendment. You know, it's vitally important that we understand how something that was created out of pure necessity at the time has become one of our country's most divisive and contentious issues. Why don't we take a look and see what our crack research team came up with?
Many of our founding fathers felt there were certain deficiencies in the new U.S. Constitution, among them being no way to handle disputes between states, no security force to suppress insurrection, and no national militia to repel possible invaders. To remedy those deficiencies, James Madison authored the Bill of Rights, delivering them to Congress in June 1789. In time, those rights would become part of the U.S. Constitution. During drafting of the first 10 amendments to our Constitution, also known as the Bill of Rights, Madison depended heavily upon English common law. The right to bear arms gained its own status as the Second Amendment. A well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. With this, the Second Amendment became part of the Constitution in December 1791. In order to implement the well-regulated militia section of the Second Amendment, the Militia Acts of 1792 were passed. The first Militia Act gave the President the authority to call out state militias whenever the United States shall be invaded or in imminent danger of invasion from any foreign nation or Indian tribe. The Second Militia Act provided for the organization of state militias and required by law that every, quote, free, able-bodied white male citizen, end quote, between the age of 18 and 45 join a local militia company. Militia members were to arm themselves with a musket, bayonet, and belt, 2 spare flints, a cartridge box with 24 bullets, and a knapsack. It would be some time, in fact 142 years, before the federal government would look again at the Second Amendment. As our nation expanded into the wild and unexplored West, firearms were a necessity, not just for hunting, but for protection as well. During this time, our nation experienced many changes. The Civil War came and went. We passed the 13th Amendment, banning slavery. Railroads spanned the continent. We entered World War I, the war to end all wars, and women finally earned the right to vote. Within those 142 years, 3 U.S. presidents were killed by assassins' bullets. Abraham Lincoln in 1865, James Garfield in 1881, and William McKinley in 1901. In addition, 3 other U.S. presidents faced assassination attempts by firearms. Andrew Jackson in 1835, Teddy Roosevelt in 1912, and Franklin Roosevelt in 1933. Not until the National Firearms Act of 1934 did the federal government consider restricting firearms. This was in direct response to the gangster wars during Prohibition and Al Capone's St. Valentine's Day Massacre in 1929. The main purpose of the National Firearms Act was to regulate machine guns and short-barreled shotguns that were considered gangster weapons. The 1938 Federal Firearms Act quickly followed, which required manufacturers and dealers who shipped or received firearms or ammunition to have a license. This began the tracking of firearm sales and ownership. Another 30 years would pass before the federal government would once again visit the Second Amendment. The Gun Control Act of 1968 was part of President Johnson's Great Society series of programs and was spurred in passage by the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Malcolm X, Robert F. Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, Jr. The deaths of the latter two men occurred after the introduction of the bill, but before it had been passed by either the House or Senate. Licensing requirements for dealers were expanded, including the keeping of more detailed records of sales. The Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives was created in 1972. Its responsibilities include the prevention and investigation of federal offenses involving the unlawful use, manufacture, and possession of firearms and explosives. The ATF also regulates file licensing, the sale, possession, and transportation of firearms, ammunition, and explosives in interstate commerce. The job of ATF director has required Senate confirmation since 2006. That has never happened, leaving the agency in the hands of acting directors to this day. In response to the assassination attempt on President Reagan and the wounding of James Brady, the Brady Handgun Violence Prevention Act of 1993 created a national background check system to prevent firearm sales to prohibited persons. It also imposed a 5-day waiting period before the sale or transfer of a handgun to an unlicensed. The federal assault weapons ban was a federal law that prohibited the manufacture for civilian use of certain semi-automatic firearms or so-called assault weapons. The 10-year ban was passed by Congress on September 13, 1994, and was signed into law by President Bill Clinton the same day. The ban only applied to weapons manufactured after the date of the ban's enactment. The federal assault weapons ban expired on September 13, 2004. Despite multiple attempts to renew the ban, no bill has reached the House floor for a vote.
And welcome back. And we have with one of our guests here is Andy Allen. He is the former president and current lobbyist for the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association. Thanks for being here with us, Andy. Really appreciate your time.
Thanks for the invitation, Chris.
As we know, Councilman Ben Gray was also going to be part of this conversation, but unfortunately he got ill this morning, and we wish him the best of health and a quick recovery, especially with these winter colds. So, Andy, we just learned about how the Second Amendment got started, what really was its purpose, how it kind of progressed through history, and actually really didn't have a lot done to it until the mid-30s. Why do you think there was just a long gap before, since the Militia Acts of 1792, 91, and 34?
There was some mention of it. It was mentioned in other court rulings as a look at how we address this, how it's looked at, as being supporting evidence for other issues. But nothing was ever directed directly at the Second Amendment. Basically,
Well, so let's talk about the other section, the more controversial section of the Second Amendment, which is, the right to bear arms will not be infringed. Bear arms part.
it's actually written the right to keep and bear. So it's two separate things that you've got the ability to do. You get to keep. So in other words, you can have them. And bear, of course, normally it's even.
You're talking about bearing is I can carry it around.
You can carry it.
Okay. So, but the court has said that the government can put limitations on that. Just as free speech isn't all free, there are limitations to that.
That's
correct.
But
it seems when we try to put limitations on that one, there's a huge uproar. Explain to me, why is there an uproar when we will accept limitations to other rights? But it seems that we won't accept any limitations to this one.
Okay, but we have accepted limitations to it. Okay, 1934, Congress decided that, there's too many machine guns out there. There's these terrible things called silencers. And people are doing terrible things with short rifles. Well, we do not have the ability to do away with those. So we're going to tax them. We're going to take and put a tax on this to make it where nobody can afford to have it.
Okay.
You know, 1934, $200 was a lot
of money. Absolutely was. Absolutely was. Okay, so when we get back, we're going to take a break because we're going to hear from the Girl Scouts. Are you going to buy Girl Scout cookies?
I always buy Girl Scouts.
Good, because they've got them out, and we're going to talk, and we're going to be back. And I'm going to challenge Andy, and he knows this is a passion of mine. It's over large capacity magazines. We're going to talk about that. So we'll be right back after we hear from the Girl Scouts.
Selling cookies is about
the big picture.
You have to have a goal.
A big goal.
something you and your team
Want to do in the world.
We choose
Where the money goes.
a trip, an adventure,
Helping people out.
helping a lot of people out.
and about the money.
We are responsible for it.
Handling it, managing it,
Tracking it.
doing great things with it.
This is business.
Girl business
The biggest girl-run business
in the world.
Did you think this was just about cookies?
For 45 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.
All right. So when we were on the break, Andy and I were talking about our favorite Girl Scout cookies. I was a Samoa guy. Andy,
Thin Mints.
Thin Mints. I got especially from the freezer. So make sure you support the Girl Scouts and buy lots of boxes of cookies. All right, Andy. This is something that I want to talk to you about, and I think that is my premise, as we've talked about before, and not so much the guns, but what we put in those. With these large capacity magazines. So I'm going to give you a couple pictures of things that we found, and our audience will be able to see this. So what I've got here is I've got two 9mm. I've got a Glock 9mm with a 50-round magazine, and then I've got one with a 100-round. So I'm going to ask you, Andy, help defend this, that somebody needs this for personal protection.
I'm not going to take and try and say that somebody needs that for personal protection. What I am going to say, has this ever been used in a crime? To your knowledge, has this ever been used in a crime?
Okay.
I'll tell you why. I'll explain to you.
Because we can go there.
I'll tell you why it's not used in a crime. Because it fails.
Okay.
It doesn't work.
All right. So okay.
It's one of those.
Then why have them available? Because here's what I think of this, Andy, and this is what I'm thinking, is when we have the ability to put 100 round, and let's say it works, then we just gave someone the ability to shoot 100 times.
Yeah.
And let's talk about, has something happened? Let's talk about Aurora, Colorado, because he had an AK-40. It's not a handgun, but it's an AR-15 style weapon.
Well, he had the AR-15. Yeah.
He had a 100-round drum magazine on that.
Yes.
Okay, so tell me, why is it necessary that we have a 100-round magazine?
Well, I'll tell you, it's one of those things. The only place that it's useful at all is the guys playing with at the range. That guy using the 100-round there, it failed. He got a couple of shots off from it, and it jammed up. And he had to take it out and replace it with a different magazine.
Right, but it didn't fail in Aurora.
Yeah, it did.
He had over 70 shots fired.
Not from that one magazine.
Okay. But so having it fail isn't to me an excuse it's okay to happen, because think of it this way. If by having here's an argument to write you. By having a high capacity magazine.
Let me here. A magazine is nothing but a box with a spring in it, okay? Mm-hmm. Let's say all gun manufacturers, all magazine manufacturers, anybody that makes those commercially can no longer manufacture that box with that spring. It's done. Okay? And I'm magic. I snap my finger. Everyone in existence in the world just disappeared. Okay? It's simply a box with a spring. How long do you think it would take for me to go to my garage, build myself a box, and put a spring in it?
But, and here's an argument. If you did that, you're breaking the law. If we outlaw those, you're breaking the law. Because
Didn't the guy in Aurora break the law when he murdered somebody?
well, yes.
Okay? If I'm going to be breaking the law for murder, am I going to be worried that I broke the law because I made a box with a spring in it?
Good point. Good point. But should we have manufacturers helping people kill more people? Because let's
But
just
they're
say,
not.
But they are. When a standard magazine for an AR-15 is 20 rounds, or 30,
30 rounds is standard.
Our research, they interchange. Some say 20, some say 30. I'll give you 30 because you're correct. I did do the research. We say 30. But having 30 and having 100 is completely different. Because we have available a 100-round magazine, then we've just tripled his ability to kill even more people by just having that available.
Okay. Here's the thing. It fails. It's not going to allow you to shoot that entire 100 rounds.
But Andy, if it always failed, there wouldn't be a market for them. If they always failed, the market itself would say, well, this is a piece of
You know what? The market does say that. That's why very few people purchase them. The guys that do purchase them as novelty items. Like a little hula girl that sits on your dashboard and shakes back and forth.
Stay out of my car.
Okay.
I like my hula girl.
She does nothing, but she looks kind of fun for you.
Okay, I can tell you something that does work, and that's for shotguns, 12 gauges. They have 12 or 20, in fact, I've got a picture here, drums for those. Now, I know that these do work. Now,
There is one model of shotgun marketed here in the United States that, yes, can use a drum magazine.
so, and I'm not going to judge because if a hunter wants to use an AR-15 or if he wants to use whatever, go for it, as long as you legally got it. But I'm just thinking, does a hunter need a 20-round, 12-gauge shotgun drum to go, if he's using to go hunting?
Well, here's the first thing. The Second Amendment has nothing to do with hunting. I think we have agreed on that already.
Okay. It
Okay.
doesn't talk about what the purpose of those arms are. Okay. I got it.
Second, that magazine that can be used in that one model of shotgun is used for people that do other sporting things. There's sporting events where people go through areas and shoot multiple targets and so forth and are timed in that, and they do use some of those things.
But explain to me the correlation of the mass shootings. We've had numbers of them, and you and I both remember. We've had 387 school shootings since 1992. That's a fact.
Somewhere in that vicinity, yes.
Right. But with the mass shootings, which the FBI says are where 4 or more people die, in every case but one, they had high-capacity magazines.
Okay, that's where we get into some fun. Is who is going to say what the high-capacity magazine is?
Okay, I'll give you that.
And I'll explain to you why I say that. There's some people out there that are quoting, and this is how they're saying in all these events there's been high-capacity magazines. Some of those, the person used a handgun that had a 15-round magazine.
All right, I'm going to stop you here. We're going to take a quick break again, and we're going to talk about, Midwest Ovarian Cancer Society. But we're going to be back. We're going to talk a few more minutes, and then I'm going to let you do your closing argument and try to convince us why we need all these magazines. So we'll be right back.
The Midwest Ovarian Cancer Association mission is to support women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, to educate the public about the disease, and to support research. Currently, most women diagnosed with ovarian cancer have advanced disease and require prolonged medical treatment. Our goal at MOCA is to see fewer women diagnosed in advanced stages and to assure all women the availability of support and access to information. Please support these efforts by liking us on Facebook.
50 years!
The Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands.
I've been helping kids like me.
Like me.
Like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
Homework help.
Exercise.
a safe place to stay after school every day. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club! Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls Club.
All right, welcome back. We're talking to Andy Allen, the former president and current lobbyist for Nebraska's Firearm Owners Association. Andy, I told you I'm going to hit you with one more, and that is stand your ground laws. We've had the horrible situation down in Florida. Currently there are 24 or 25 states that have stand your ground laws, and I think last year there was actually 5 other states that were considering it. I'm still trying to.
We did consider it here in Nebraska. Yes.
That's true. Last year it wasn't in the legislature. So, do me a favor. Defend why we need stand your ground. Why do you think that's important? Or
Okay.
even if you do, I don't want to make an assumption.
Can we, real quick? I'll go the history of stand your ground. Did you know that there's at least 3 states, and I think it's more than that stand your ground has always been the law? U.S. Supreme Court going all the way back into the 1800s, with progressive justices saying there's no duty for a man to retreat from a raised knife.
Okay, but there's a difference between a knife and a gun.
Yes, there is.
Because you can kill somebody much farther away with a gun than you can with a knife.
That's right. But stand your ground simply means that you have the ability to meet force with force. If somebody attacks you, you don't have to take it. You don't have to turn your back and try to run away. When they attack you, you can do what you need to defend yourself.
Okay, do you think Zimmerman stood his ground, or do you think there's more to that story?
I tell you, I have read the police reports from that, and I have seen all the photographs, and I've listened to a lot of the various things. It's a bad situation.
I think there's more to that story.
I
think
personally am sitting there. He should have clarified the 911 operator before he started following him. The operator was asking him questions, and he should have clarified, well, I can't see him at the moment. Should I move around so that I can? I think that would have been a good judgment on his behalf.
All right, we're going to have to wrap up this segment. Andy's going to come back with us. Aida Amoura, the communications director for Omaha Mayor's Jim Suttles, will be here, and we're going to focus on legislation, both at the federal, state, and local level, because there's some things happening in Nebraska, there's things happen across the country, not to mention President Obama's 23 executive orders. Before we go, make sure you listen to the Boy Scouts.
My son, the Cub Scout, helped raise money to make camping safer.
My son, the Cub Scout, stood up to the school bully.
My son, the Cub Scout, volunteers at the homeless shelter.
My sons, the Boy Scouts, helped clean up after the devastating flood.
My son, the Eagle Scout, helped save a man's life.
My sons, the Eagle Scouts, are defending our nation.
My son, the Eagle Scout, became a doctor,
civil engineer,
police chief,
wonderful husband and father,
state senator.
Join Scouting2012.
About the big picture.
You have to have a goal.
A big goal.
Something you and your team
Want to do in the world.
We choose
Where the money goes.
a trip, an adventure,
Helping people out.
helping a lot of people out.
and about the money.
We are responsible for it.
Handling it, managing it,
Tracking it.
doing great things with it.
This is business.
Girl business
The biggest girl-run business
in the world.
Did you think this was just about cookies?
All right, thanks for being with us here on Viewpoint. We've got a new guest that has joined us, Aida Amoura. She's the communications director for Mayor Suttles' administration. Thank you for being with us, Aida.
My pleasure.
And what we're going to be talking about in this segment, as we discussed earlier, is we're going to talk about the legislation, or is what is being proposed, what the city's doing, what we're going to need to talk about some of the state laws and some of the federal laws, and is the assault weapons ban going to happen again? But I want to give you an opportunity because I really am interested in this new. For Mayor Suttles has the Illegal Guns Task Force. Is that right?
An illegal gun task force, and the other one was for landlord task force. And basically, the whole purpose of both of them were to see if there was anything beyond what the police, what our community organizations, what people in the community had been doing. He just wanted to say, is there anything else we can think of that's outside the box that we can look at that could curtail gun violence, gang violence, any kind of violence on our streets, repeat violence. So with the Landlord Task Force, one of the things they've come up with is that really we want to work with landlords to make sure that they, the properties that are out there tend to be a place for people to go, to, gang members to go. And so we want to eliminate that. And it was neighborhoods that said to us, this is a problem. We know that this is going on. We know that people have guns there. We know they have gangs there. And we want that off our streets. And they tend to gravitate to vacated properties that are abandoned and dilapidated. So we've done some efforts there with, maybe stepping up, demolishing those in a kind of a concerted effort. The Illegal Gun Task Force was to look for what ways can we think of that are outside the box to get rid of illegal weapons that are on the street that tend to be the ones that violent offenders, repeat violent offenders, chronic gang members that are out doing stuff, they tend to be the ones who have those illegal guns, and those are the things we'd like to get off the streets.
Define to us what illegal gun is. When we say the Illegal Gun Task Force, what is an illegal gun?
An illegal gun is one that isn't registered, that really has, you can't trace who the, or you could trace who the owner is, but it isn't the person who has the gun.
Who has it, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm going to assume, Alan, that you guys, for gun rights activists, getting illegal guns off the street is you support that wholeheartedly.
Okay, I got a problem with the term illegal gun.
Okay.
Okay, and I brought along a little demonstration. Okay,
we
to
clear this for our
explain
producers?
No, we did not. Here it is. I pulled this out of one of my wife's flower pots before I came in. It's a simple little rock. The rock isn't legal. It isn't illegal. It's just a rock. It's an inanimate object. Okay? Now, if I was to take this rock and throw it through a window, I'd have committed an illegal act. If I throw this rock at Kris, I'd have committed an illegal act. But the rock is still a rock. What I did is illegal. Okay? So the gun is just like this rock. It's an inanimate object. It can't make decisions. It can't do anything. It just is. So what we need to talk about is criminals who get guns.
But I think, and correct me if I'm wrong.
But when they're not registered and they're not, most people who are gun owners, who hunt and who do those, they have no problem registering their gun. They're not doing anything wrong. They know exactly what the purpose is for using their gun.
But I think one thing that we have to be clear on, Nebraska law allows, like for myself, I have a concealed carry license. I'm not required to register my gun. Is my gun illegal?
But you've got a concealed carry license.
Okay. So it's not just any gun that's not registered. If it's not registered, in violation.
So in other words, it's just a gun. It's being used criminally. So that's
and I understand exactly what you're saying. Absolutely. You can take anything and it can be used in that way. The problem is there are guns that are being used for these things, and most of them are illegal guns that are not registered, that have that are being picked up, sawed-off shotguns, whatever. Clearly, these are not guns that are being used for a purpose that they were really intended for to begin with.
A defaced gun, whether it's sawed off or defaced in some other manner, is still just a gun. The person that defaced it did an illegal act.
Right.
Okay. The gun itself is just an innocent bystander.
Now, when we talk about defacing it, let's make sure our audience understands. Are we talking about when the serial numbers are wiped off?
That's one type of defacing.
Well, but but I guess the question is, would we want guns out there that don't have serial numbers that have been taken off? Do we still want that weapon in circulation?
I don't think that it should be in circulation. I have nothing
I think for the safety and protection of people who actually do register their guns and do follow the proper rules and regulations for guns, I think it's unfair to them. They can be implicated and pulled into something that they never had anything to do with.
Exactly. It is.
It's for their protection,
but
too.
The gun itself wasn't illegal. The act of defacing it, the using it in a crime, the criminal did something illegal. The gun didn't.
But the gun, though,
It's a tool, though.
Yeah, it's just,
It's the
gun
tool
can't
that
do
they're
anything-
using.
Right, the gun
Exactly.
can't do anything by itself. But to his point, because I have a gun that may be defaced, am I breaking the law?
Not if it's licensed, not if it's registered.
Okay, so we go
I
back.
mean, but I do think, I don't know all the circumstances regarding
I will go-
defaced
it
weapons.
it's gonna
There might
depend
be,
upon the
there might be other
defacement.
regulations regarding that I'm not aware of.
It depends on the defacement. If you're talking the serial number was purposely removed,
That could be a
yes,
problem.
it would be a problem, and that would be an illegal act on your part having that gun.
Okay, we're going to take a quick break. Family Fair Housing, we're going to be talking about them right quick. But when I get back, I want to talk about two issues. One is gun amnesty, which has been a program since 2010 for Omaha. It took place gun buybacks. And then I want to talk about concealed carry licensing and why Omaha doesn't allow open carry. So when we come back, that's what we're going to talk about. So stay tuned.
For 45 years, Family Housing Advisory Services has been improving quality of life by helping people achieve housing and financial stability. FAS prevents homelessness, educates homeowners, provides foreclosure prevention options, develops financially wise consumers, offers affordable mortgage lending options, eliminates housing discrimination, and reduces poverty. Programs and services include homebuyer education, tenant services, financial management, tax assistance, homeowner finance, and fair housing. For more information, call 402-934-7921.
The Midwest Ovarian Cancer Association mission is to support women diagnosed with ovarian cancer, to educate the public about the disease, and to support research. Currently, most women diagnosed with ovarian cancer have advanced disease and require prolonged medical treatment. Our goal at MOCA is to see fewer women diagnosed in advanced stages and to assure all women the availability of support and access to information. Please support these efforts by liking us on Facebook.
All right, welcome back to Viewpoint with our guest, our long-term guest, Andy Allen, former president, current lobbyist for the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association, and our newer guest, Aida Amoura. She is the communications director for Omaha's Mayor Jim Suttles. And like I said before we went to a break, what I want to talk about next, first of all, is gun amnesty. I know that Omaha has really stepped it up. It replaced the gun buyback program that the city had a partnership with. So tell us a little about that, and tell us, from what I understand, the research we got, so far, what we found out, since 2010, about 350 guns have been turned in. Is that right, or is there more to that story?
No, there's more to the story.
Okay.
We've stepped up the number of gun amnesty programs that we do.
I did notice that.
There's been an incentive, so on some of those gun amnesty things, there's money for some of them, I believe.
Is that like maybe certain
I'm not exactly
okay.
sure. But I think it's been like to the tune of like 800 and 900
okay.
guns that by stepping that up. I don't know if it's the best solution possible. We've seen it work in some instances. It's obviously in a gun amnesty program. You don't give your name. You're not going to get punished if you turn it in. And regardless of what kind of weapon, registered or illegal, it's no questions asked. They just take them.
And I know you've got a problem with that, right? The no questions asked part of it.
I have a problem with the no questions asked part. First, studies say that these gun turn-in programs, whether it's a buyback or just a straight amnesty like we run here, where there's not generally compensation given for turning it in, don't do anything. They don't accomplish getting crime guns off the street.
But would you say any gun we can get off the street that is not being used, that's just sitting around, isn't that a good thing for making sure kids don't get a hold of them?
Actually, what I'd recommend to people to do, instead of turning them in, is take those to a pawn shop, a gun dealer. Those people will buy them and give you money for them if they're not broken and something that should be destroyed. And there's a lot of people who need self-defense weapons.
But at a pawn shop or whatever, wouldn't you have to turn in some information? That might be a problem for someone who doesn't have the right intention with the gun.
That's where we hit the next problem with it. Okay? That guy that's got the illegal gun, possibly a gun that's got a body hanging on it, there's no questions asked, there's no punishment. We take it back to the police station and we check it out and we find out, oh my, this gun was used to kill somebody last week. But we don't know who it was, so we just let a criminal go.
But on many of those cases, there's enough to go on outside of the gun itself. So taking the gun off the street does help at least alleviate that tool that could be used in the next crime or the next shooting.
But it also takes away a lot of guns that could be used by people that can't afford to go out and buy the new $1,000 gun, that could afford to buy the $200 used gun, that need a self-defense weapon.
And we're not saying that that's the wrong thing to do. Absolutely, if they could do that and get money off, that's fine. But the reason they're not doing that to begin with and getting the money that they could be using off of that is because there's something that they're doing. It may not be totally kosher either.
Let me quote here. Back in July 2010, the first amnesty program, OPD Officer Benton stated that the goal was to work to get guns out of the hands of criminals. He says, even if that gun had been used in a crime and somebody has a guilty conscience, we want them to turn it in. And if they want to turn it in, we're not going to ask any questions. They can do the right thing and not suffer any consequences. Well, let me pose this to you, Aida, is I use my DX Springfield and I kill somebody, and can I get away with it if I just turn it on an amnesty because they're just going to melt it down?
They're assuming that that is the only thing they can use. On many of these cases, especially with violent crimes, the police department has lots of other avenues and lots of other information that they can use aside from the weapon itself. If it stops them from using it again in another, because a lot of times this is how you get repeat offenders that keep coming. And a lot of the cases we're finding with violent crimes, these people are doing it again and again and again.
And unfortunately, they're doing it again and again because they can get another gun. You can get another gun on the street anywhere.
I'm not saying this is the end-all, be-all. This is one step. This is one thing we can do. If it gets this, it saves one person's life or two people's life from doing a repeat offense. There are other avenues that the police department can use to track down, especially people who are violent criminals.
So let's talk about one of the it seems that unfortunately only when a major shooting, a mass shooting, a school shooting, do we really start talking about this. I mean, let's be honest. The reason why we're doing this show today is because of kind of what's happened in recent months. But we experienced that here in Omaha with the Von Mars shooting. One of the things I think
we're missing an important thing here. Omaha does have a violence problem. We've got a terrible violence problem.
But doesn't have more guns on the street amplifying that problem? And maybe that's what the amnesty program is trying to do. We're not, and I think, Anita,
it's not the end-all, be-all.
Right.
But it is one step in trying to do that while we also do community policing and have more people that are willing to come forward on problems. It's not the only thing. It's effective if it's used in conjunction with many other methods of looking for these folks. Beefing up the gang unit.
Unfortunately, the studies say that it has none to a negative effect. That's what the studies say about the gun buyback programs.
But our police department has studies that say the opposite of that, too.
Well,
so
I think we could all agree.
It depends on the studies you look at.
I think we can all agree we can make a study say anything, and we can make a poll say anything.
True.
Depending on how we
Absolutely.
So we're going to take a quick break. We're going to come back for just a couple more questions, and then we're going to give you guys the last word. And I appreciate you putting the time. So what we're going to do is we're going to talk about the Boys and Girls Club when we come back.
50 years!
The Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands
I've been helping kids like me. Like me.
Like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
homework help, exercise, a safe place to stay after school every day. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls.
My son, the Cub Scout, helped raise money to make camping safer.
My son, the Cub Scout, stood up to the school bully.
My son, the Cub Scout, volunteers at the homeless shelter.
My sons, the Boy Scouts, helped clean up after the devastating flood.
My son, the Eagle Scout, helped save a man's life.
My sons, the Eagle Scouts, are defending our nation.
My son, the Eagle Scout, became a doctor.
Civil engineer,
Police chief.
wonderful husband and father,
State senator.
JoinScouting2012.org.
All right, welcome back. We're wrapping up our show, but I've got one more question I want to ask you guys. Is some research we did found that of the 62 mass shootings, schools, Aurora, that they found that 79% of the weapons used were obtained legally. So my question is, because one of the things we're talking about is more legislation, more restriction. Is it really necessary if these massacres is the only word I could think of, if they're being done by weapons that are legally obtained, then, I mean, do we need to have 23 executive orders? Do we need to have, I think, 12 bills in the legislature here in Nebraska? I mean, is that the answer? And if not, what is that answer? I'm asking you first. Ladies first.
I think again, I think this has raised an issue. It has shined a light on what is going on. Do I think it's just the gun itself or this? If there's a mental health issue here that we're dealing with, there's a lot of issues. There's something in our society that isn't working. I think when we talk about some of the gun control, and I don't even know if you call it gun control, basically looking at what things we can do to curtail violence in some way. It's not the whole answer either, though. And it shouldn't be completely restricting people from their Second Amendment rights. I mean, I don't think that's the intent either. I think there's just a way to say, listen, guns are helping in executing these acts of violence that we need to stop. And I think that's why you're seeing this come up now. People are looking for answers.
So Andy, let me twist it up for you. Yes, they were obtained legally. Should they have been illegal? So instead of 79%, they actually had to do something else to get because either A, it's too easy to get a firearm, or there's something else. I mean, should they be more restrictive so that they can't easily legally get a gun to commit these acts?
I'm going to, in some of those cases, and each case is different.
I would agree.
But I'm going to take and point to a specific case as an example here of something that has a thread that ties through a lot of these. And we'll go to the Arizona shooting with Gabby Giffords. And she was a great lady and still is. But the person that did that, there had been multiple complaints to the sheriff's department about this person and about his activities, and that he was showing extreme mental illness problems and violence tendency problems. And the sheriff never did anything to follow up on it. Now, I have to defend the sheriff on a slight stance here, okay? In 1971, 1% of our American population was in insane asylums. These insane asylums were terrible, nasty, dark places. We wouldn't want anybody to be in one of those places. And the people that were there didn't want to be in those places. And we've done something about that and eliminated those. But in the meantime, we have done nothing to replace that support structure. We've done nothing to replace and do something for those people that have the mental illness problems. We have done nothing to address those issues. And psychologists will tell you today that they don't have the tools that they used to have. I mean, the standard to take somebody's rights away rightfully is a high standard.
Well, unfortunately, we don't have time. Let me tell you, we did a lot of research to get ready, and we didn't tip the iceberg because mental illness is a double-edged sword because some people say it is a problem, but there's studies at Harvard University that says, you know what, it's not an issue. So, like I said, there's a lot we could have covered. I appreciate you both there. But I want to give you guys your closing statements just to your last-minute pitch. So we'll start with Andy.
All I really have to say is that we've had a great discussion here. And like Kris said, we just touched on the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of information out there, and today our rights are being attacked like we have not seen in our lifetimes. And it really means that we have to all stand up as individuals and do what we can to protect them. Contact our senators, contact our congressmen, become informed on what the bills are that are out there, and do whatever you can to protect your rights.
All right, thanks, Andy. Aida?
I would agree that we need to not just jump on one, you don't just say, take all the guns away if something bad happens. We shouldn't have that kind of reaction. But I do think that one thing that is very important is that it's raising an issue. If these create discussions about what we can do to help, curb violence, to help, like you said, make sure that we don't have violent criminals on our streets and reduce the level of violence. I know the public wants that, and they're really clamoring to have that done. If this is just even merely a way for us to open the discussion on it, and it may help, and it may help curtail it, may help look at the different issues that it involves, I think it's a good thing. But you're right. You need to look at these carefully and not just jump on the first thing. So.
Well, I think we've learned one thing. One is this is a complicated issue. But I'm going to tell you, I think it's all going to come down to compromise on both sides. I think if we can't somehow bring some of the extremes inward, I don't think we're going to get anywhere. But I think it starts with conversations like this. I want to thank our guest, Andy Allen, former president and current lobbyist of the Nebraska Firearms Owners Association, and then Aida Amoura, communications director for Jim Suttles' office here in Omaha. And when we come back, I'm going to give you my 2 cents. But before we do that, Girl Scout cookies. Get them while they've got them. We'll be right back.
50 years!
The Boys and Girls Club of the Midlands
Have been helping kids like me. Like me.
like us.
For just $30 a year, I can get
A healthy meal.
homework help, exercise, a safe place to stay after school every day. At one of our 8 clubs. My name is Janelle.
And I am the Boys and Girls Club.
The Boys and Girls Club. We are the Boys and Girls Club! Like us on Facebook at BGC Midlands. Cox will donate $1 to the Boys and Girls
The big picture.
You have to have a goal.
A big goal.
Something you and your team
Want to do in the world.
We choose
Where the money goes.
a trip, an adventure,
Helping people out.
helping a lot of people out.
and about the money.
We are responsible for it.
Handling it, managing it,
Tracking it.
doing great things with it.
This is business.
Girl business.
The biggest girl-run business
In the world.
Did you think this was just about cookies?
I'm a legal gun owner with a concealed carry permit. Now, in order to purchase my handgun and to get my permit, I had to do the following. First, I had to go through 3 extensive background checks. Then, I had to complete a Nebraska State Patrol-approved carrying concealed weapons class. And then finally, I had to meet required target qualifications at a local gun range. I'm a strong proponent of gun ownership for those that desire it and are qualified. I also believe that our government, at any level, should not infringe on the right to legally own a firearm, whether it be used for hunting, sport shooting, or even personal protection. However, I believe there can never be a complete unfeathered access for just anyone to own a firearm. I believe that most of America agrees with me on this. I also think that we should be able to agree that extensive background checks are necessary and that there should be a 5-day waiting period where you can take your firearm home. Now, some may be asking why I think it's important they wait 5 days before they receive their firearm. My answer is quite simple. I believe the time is necessary to ensure that a thorough background check can be completed, and ample time is given in order to find those that should never have access to firearms. I think it's time for Americans to ask ourselves some very tough but honest questions. First, do we really need high-capacity magazines for personal protection and for hunting? Does anyone really need a Glock 9mm with a 50-round drum magazine? Or how about a 9mm handgun with a 100-round drum magazine? Whether for hunting for sport or for food, does anyone need a shotgun? Now, I'm not talking about this or even this, but I am talking about this. This is a 12-gauge shotgun fitted with a 20-round drum magazine. Now, some believe that the AR-15 is an effective hunting rifle. And I'm not going to argue this point because every person has his or own personal preference. However, does a hunter really need this? This is an AR-15 style rifle equipped with a 100-round drum magazine. Now, it seems to me a standard 20 or 30 round magazine would do the job just fine and perhaps leave some meat on the bones. You know, since we're on the topic of hunting, this brings me to the second question. Were assault rifles really meant for hunting? Now, see, I'm not an advocate for banning all types of high-powered firearms altogether, as long as they're purchased legally. And I don't think there is the support needed in the Congress to renew the assault weapons ban. But I think the common theme, the mass shootings this country has had to endure, is high-capacity magazines. When we give those that we want to do harm the capacity to kill, wound, and maim on a large scale with little or no effort, then maybe that should be our focus. If James Holmes did not have access to the 100-round drum magazine for his AR-15 style rifle as he shot up the theater in Aurora, Colorado, how many of the 12 killed would be alive today? How many of the 58 wounded would no longer have to look at those scars each and every day and relive that horrible, terrible day? Evil will do evil, and high-capacity magazines make their job easier. You know, I'm willing to advocate for no ban on any firearm if others are willing to advocate to limit magazine capacity. I would hope that all legal gun owners, like myself, would support this compromise, because no one wants their sons or daughters to find themselves in harm's way just because someone who shouldn't have access to a firearm with the ability to kill 100 people without reloading is having a bad day. Thanks for watching Viewpoint with Kris Pierce today. We've had a great discussion. Gun control is never easy, and we've only touched the tip of the iceberg. I definitely want to thank our guests, Andy Allen and Aida Amoura. Make sure you tune in next time. We're going to have a great discussion about the Keystone Pipeline and the possible route right through our own state here in Nebraska. Hey, find us online at www.ne-viewpoint.org. Find us on Facebook. Hey, follow us on Twitter at Viewpoint TV. Thanks for watching, and have a great day.
Today's program has been underwritten by Body Auto Real Estate, providing personal and professional real estate service since 1987. For all your real estate needs, call Diane Body Auto at 402-690-4769. Linda McDermott with Fricke & Associates is an independent insurance representative helping you with personal and business insurance, as well as your long-term care, life, health, and retirement needs. Come join the conversation at PoliticalInsidersReport.com, Nebraska's source for local politics.